for our last video on circles, we're going to give you a problem here that is a little bit different in nature. Notice in this particular problem they are asking us to write the standard form of the equation of a circle. Now, that being the case, you've known in the past that we need a value for the center point and we need a value for the radius to be able to write the circle. But if you notice that they really don't give us both of those. What they've basically given us is they've given us the center point and they've given us a point on the circle. So they've given us 2 points. They've given us a center point of 0, 0, which is technically our H and our K. And they've also given us a point of 1, 4. Now, if I were to try to get a visual of that, if I went over 1, up 4, and I know that that's my center point, then I can basically create a radius here. So my circle is going to look something like this. And we need to write the equation for that. Well, that means that we need to know what that value is for the radius. So we're unsure of that. If you recall from a previous lesson, given 2 points, we can actually come up with the distance of that radius using the distance formula. So that's what we need to do in this particular situation, and you can see here the radius can be determined using the distance formula and using the 2 points. So we're going to subtract the x's and square them. We're going to subtract the y's and we're also going to square them. And that gives us this value of square root of 17. Now, we're going to recommend that at this point you just leave it in exact form. Do not make this a decimal, and you're going to see why in this next step. Since we know that the origin is the center point, we have x squared plus y squared, and then we have this r squared. And you can see here that this works out very nicely with the r squared term. Since we have the square root of 17 being squared, the square root symbol and the square just simply cancel each other out, leaving 17 for the equation. So x squared plus y squared equals 17. So this is a little bit different look. We have to use some knowledge from a previous section in regards to the distance formula. And it's always a good idea to kind of get a general feel for what the graph looks like. Now, we won't always give it to you in terms of 0, 0. Sometimes you'll have to do it with a different center point. But for right now, let's just see if we can concentrate on working a problem like that one. So sample problem 3, just take time to pause the video and see if you can work that out. Okay, I'm going to start this problem by simply giving myself a visual. And I know that the center point is at the origin. And I'm going to go -2, +5, and notice that I really don't care how exact that is. I'm just trying to give myself a visual idea of what type of circle I'm dealing with. And if you notice here that if that were the case, you know, the circle would look something like that. And of course I'm not any wonderful kind of artist, but I have given myself a nice visual, and I need that r value to be able to write the equation of the circle. So the first thing I need to do is to take that 2 points and use the distance formula to create the radius. So the radius is going to be the square root of -2 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 0 squared. If you recall back in the section on distance formula, I told you it's a good idea to get in the habit of always writing that square root symbol first. -2 minus 0 is -2 squared. Keep the -2 in parentheses so that you square it appropriately. And again, I now have 4 plus 25, and my radius ends up being the square root of 29. Now, that's okay, because as we saw in the last example, that square root is going to end up canceling out. So we're dealing with the origin. So since we're dealing with the origin, I know I'm dealing with x squared plus y squared, which is the easy part of this equation. And now we have to square the r values, so that's r squared. And if you recall from previous sections, that the squared and the square root cancel each other out, leaving me x squared plus y squared equals to 29, and that is the final equation of this circle. Alright, so there's another type of circle question that we could end up asking you.